Okay, so here I will explain you about the RBAC permissions in the Kubernetes. Okay, role-based access control permissions. So let me open the notepad. It's RBAC permissions, role-based access control. Okay, how we can create role-based access controls in the Kubernetes or in the OpenShift. So there are two types of role-based. Okay, so one is the role, and then we'll create a role bind, right? The second is cluster role and cluster role bind. Okay, and so what is the difference in both? So if I create a role, and then that role I can bind with any namespace or any user, then that particular user will be having access on that particular namespace. He cannot see any other namespace resources. Whatever running in the other namespaces, he cannot view, he cannot list, he cannot like get list watch, he cannot do it. Okay, if I create a cluster role and then I'll bind it with a namespace with a cluster, then the particular user will be having a access on across the cluster. Means based on the roles which I assign, he can create pod in any namespace. Okay, so what I will do, I'll create two users. One is the view user and the second is deploy user. Okay, admin user will be by default exist on every cluster. So if you have the admin user access, then you will be having a full privileges on the clusters. Means you can destroy the cluster also. That much of privileges you will be having if you are logging with your admin user. But if you are login with your view user, you can only view, but again depend on what level of view you can do, either on particular namespace or on the whole cluster. So I'll create view user here also, and then here also. I'll create deploy user. In the role and role bind category, and then cluster role and cluster role bind category. So again I will explain you. So if I create a view user, and for this view user I'll create a role and role bind. Okay, then this particular user can work only in the particular namespace. Okay, suppose the namespace is dev namespace, so he cannot view any other namespace, because in the cluster there are multiple namespaces exists. Okay, it's created for multiple applications, so he cannot see any other namespace. He can only see the dev namespace. Whatever running inside the dev namespace, he can get, list and watch. If I create a deploy user and if I assign a role and role bind, then that particular deploy user can deploy application inside that particular namespace, not any other namespace. Similarly, if I create view user and if I assign cluster role and cluster role bind, then he can view all the namespaces across the cluster. If I create a deploy user and assign a cluster role and cluster role bind, then this particular deploy user can deploy application in any namespace. But I will make sure that for the deploy user, I won't give the delete permission. Okay, so this deploy user can deploy the application but cannot delete any resources. Okay, Fine. And if you are logging as an admin user, then you will be having a complete privileges on the cluster. Fine. So what I will do, let's start. I will create first one user. Okay. So the user concept in Kubernetes is not like a Linux. Linux, we are creating one user, add user, and then we are giving a permission, right? We are adding that user in a particular group that, okay, he will be a root level access he will be having or the normal user. But this concept we do not have in the Kubernetes like a Linux. Here we can create a users and he can log in that user based on certificate or token based login or some third party like LDAP or Active Directory. Okay, so this we need to integrate with the Kubernetes. Okay, but we are not doing this part. Okay, this LDAP and Active Directory, we are doing this certificate based login. Fine. So now I'm doing this activity, the first activity. Okay, so this is my first activity. So what I will do, I'll create one namespace. Suppose I'll create one namespace Nokia. Okay, Nokia NS. I'll create one namespace Nokia NS. Okay, and then I'll create one user. I'll view user and then deploy user, and we will see whether this what the permission when view user is login, what the permission when the deploy user is logging on the cluster, right? So while the creation process is totally different. Okay, when we talk about Kubernetes login access or RBAC permissions, then the process is totally different. Fine. So let me open my notepad where I saved my all the steps. So I'm creating one user. So the first user is view user. Okay, so fine. Open SSL and then view user. This is done. Okay, the second part is I have to create CSR, certificate signing request. Okay, so let me do this. So instead of Raj, I'll give view user. View user. View user. Okay, and then the fine, done. So the next is I'll approve this request. Fine. So approval is simple. I'll create and then approve. Okay. So let me do this. So let me change this. Instead of Raj, I'll give view user. Okay. And then come here and then you do the view user. Okay. Fine. So just and it's created view user CSR created. So the last step which I have to approve. So approve. It's approved now. Now the next step is I can download the certificate now, because this certificate we will be using later. Okay. So create, I'll give view user.crt, and this certificate is view user. Okay, done. So let me check this, whether the certificate is captured or not. So fine, I captured the certificate now for the view user. Now the next step is I have to configure this. Okay, so configure kubectl for the new user. I'll inform the cluster. Okay, so cities, right? So I'll view user, view user, view user. It's a set now. So the next step is assign the RBAC to the user. So now this is the RBAC that I am assigning to user. So he can only, I'll create one namespace first. Okay, Nokia NS. So kubectl create NS and then Nokia NS. Now Nokia NS is created, right? So I'll create the RBAC, and inside that namespace I'll give Control C. So I'll go to the cluster, vi view user role.yaml. I'll save it, and this namespace I'll change escape I. So I'll give Nokia NS, fine, and then the what is that, role name is pod reader. Okay, so I'll give the pod name Nokia reader, fine, and I'm giving permission get, list, and watch. For what resource? Only for the pods. Done. So kubectl apply -f and then run. This is done. Now I will create the role bind. So very simple. So this is the role bind file. Let me copy. So vi view user role bind dot yaml, escape I, save, and then I think API group C is copied or not. Let me check one more time. Yeah, it's done, copied. So here I'll give the name I think I have given their Nokia reader. Then the role name is view user. Okay. And then the pod name is Nokia pods. And I'll give here namespace instead of dev. I'll give Nokia NS. Okay. So let me save this. This is done. So kubectl create -f. This is done. Now this file I already both are created. Role and role bind is created. Now binding is done. Everything is done. So next is switch kubectl to use Raj. So I have to run this. I'm switching with view user. So let me check this. Instead of Raj, I have to do the view user, and then here also view user. Okay. And finally, the username. So this is view user. Let's run this. It's set now for the view user. Now we can set a context. Fine. So I'll set a context for this user. So here, view user, and then namespace is Nokia NS. Cluster, my cluster name is minikube. Here I'll give view user. Okay, done. This is created. So let me log in with this user. So I'll use this Control C. And then I'll take this. Done. So if I give the QNS, anyway, this is not showing QNS, yeah. So if I okay, so I'm in the once view user. So test RBAC permissions. It should be list of pods. Okay, so let me try kubectl get pod. No resources found, right? So no canvas. I will take one duplicate session. Test. Okay. So kubectl run pod run. Then I'll give test pod hyphen image is equal to httpd -n Nokia NS. With admin user, I'm creating one pod inside the Nokia NS. Okay, because since permission is not there, so I'm getting the error. Error from server, pod is forbidden. User view user cannot create resources, pods in API group in the namespace QNS, right? So this error we were expecting because we have only given this user access that he can only get list and watch for this particular namespace. So he cannot create any pod. Inside this Nokia NS, we cannot create any pod. Okay. So this is the error that we were expecting. Now what I will do, kubectl get pod. Get pod will work, okay? But if I give the get svc, see, it's showing error because I have given in the resource group only pod. So he can only get list and watch only pods, not any other resources like service or anything. Okay. So this is the way that we can restrict user. So this is our view user. Now we have to create user, deploy user. Okay. In that deploy user, we have to make sure that if he gives kubectl get pod, then he can list all the pods inside this particular Nokia namespace, or I'll create a separate namespace. Okay. And we will see it whether this deploy user with the permission roles and role bind, okay, how much privileges he's having, that we can verify. So what I will do, let me first come out from this namespace, okay, this user context, because this user is having a very less privileges, so I cannot run any command. Fine. So to come out this, we having a very simple command, that is, okay, so you can verify it what permission is having. So if I run these 4 commands, okay, so we'll get the answer. See this. So kubectl auth, can I list pods? Then answer is yes, you can list a pod. Kubectl auth, can I delete pod? No, you cannot delete pod. Okay, if you are a view user. Kubectl auth, can I get pods? Namespace dev. So any other namespace you cannot get, you do not have the rights. Kubectl auth, can I create deployments? No. Now if I change this and if I give the Nokia NS, then answer should come as yes, right? So inside the Nokia NS, you can get list and watch the pods, only pods. Okay, remember, only pods, not any other resources like services or daemon set or deployments, nothing. You do not have the permission. Okay, so I'll create a separate video because 15 minutes video will be easier to understand. Okay, so I'll create a separate video on the deploy user, then I'll create a separate video on the cluster role access with deploy user and with view user. So just I am stopping this video here, this recording here, and then I will create separate video. So let me stop this. Stop share. Hang. So stop recording.